Hey everybody, good afternoon. Run of show. We're going to start with HR 1670. I appreciate Representative Adenia. I know that you're on a tight time schedule. Then depending on, I didn't see Senator Burns, I apologize. Since Senator Burns is here, I know that the leader is still in rules, so most likely you'll go second, sir, and then we'll do the cleanup with Senate Bill 540. So with that stated, Representative Adenia, would you like to go to the podium or would you like to do it from there? It's completely up to you, sir. All right, little formality, I love it. Do us a favor, give us the resolution number, please, and then also the LC, please.
All right. House Resolution number 1670, LC 610472. So, as I stated when it came here as a bill, which is now a resolution, a couple of years ago when my daughter was a junior, she had a classmate who she saw her taking food from the garbage, and it stuck in her mind, and when she told me, it did bother me quite a bit, knowing that food is always a challenge, not just in our schools, but in our communities. So we came up with this simple bill that really addresses food insecurity, food hunger, and it's really sharing food across using the digital platform. And the goal would be to encourage municipalities to voluntarily participate in sharing food, and they would basically create a community, and restaurants or co-ops or any organization can on the digital platform notify people they have food, and those who have need can access that. So that's simply what it is. And since we spoke last, I've spoken to GMA, they're in support, along with ACCG. And what also happened, interestingly enough, the Spelman Georgia Women's Policy Institute cohort reached out to me, and they are working on a proposal they'd like to speak with me about that addresses food insecurity. So there's a lot of interest around addressing food hunger, not just here in our state, but globally. And I think if we did something unique and had such a resolution out there, we'd be able to encourage more participation.
Thank you, Representative Adenia. I appreciate that. You are the lucky recipient of 0 questions or 0 comments. So kudos to you, sir. You were that complete. This was your first hearing, so as you know, we'll go ahead and just hear it today. And I appreciate your time, sir. And I look forward to hearing it on the second hearing. And I think you need to head to a commitment that you have. I appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Senator Burns, Senate Bill 418, sir. If you could just give the bill, and also I want to call it the SB number. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. I apologize for schedule conflicts. It's a little challenging right now on both sides of the Capitol, but I appreciate getting Senate Bill 418. The number is SB 418/CSFA. This is the committee sub for SB 418. 418 is a significant step in the right direction to protect Georgians from having their image abused. I was driving in this morning about 6:30, and I was listening to my favorite radio station on the way in. I think it's Welcome South Brother, and WSB had a little segment on exactly this issue, where young individuals are taking an image of themselves or their quote-unquote friends or classmates and creating a representation that is either nude or in a sexually explicit representation. So this bill is designed to protect all individuals, not just minors, but also adults, and indeed, if you read the bill, even those who have passed away, from being exploited, from being abused, from being subjected to ridicule or shame or embarrassment, bullying, blackmail, any negative things, recognizing that right now our youth are challenged to maintain a balanced emotional state. And as they are negatively represented, that has a tremendous impact on them. Let's look at the bill. The first section in lines, I guess, 12 through 26 or so, are just definitions. I think this most important thing in these to note, I think you'll recognize image or individual or nudity or photograph, sexually explicit. All of these are referenced in Georgia Code now. I want to point out line 25. Use or uses means and includes personal use or the use that involves publication, performance, distribution, transmission, or otherwise making it available, irrespective of whether that is for commercial purposes or personal purposes. So if you take an image and you abuse it to represent it in a nude or sexual manner, it's wrong. And how do we address that? I'm not a fan of using the tort system, even though we originally started there. I'll explain that. If you read the caption, it's not as clean as it needs to be. We're trying to clean that up. So this is not a cause of action, which would result in a tort. This is a civil enforcement action. So if you look at line 28 and following, the Attorney General or an appropriate prosecuting attorney, that could be a DA, it could be a solicitor, it could be an ADA, or appropriate prosecuting attorney may bring a civil enforcement action against any person, respective of age, who knowingly uses an individual's image together at the same time with one or more depictions of nudity or sexually explicit conduct. That means that there would be the ability for that prosecuting attorney to issue a cease and desist order, to issue a injunctive relief order on lines 25, and have civil penalties up to $10,000 per violation. The other significant components of the bill are the fact that a minor has 10 years from the time they turn 18 years of age to bring a civil action against them, a civil enforcement action against them. An adult has 10 years from the point of the infraction, and a deceased individual can also be abused, and that would be similarly 10 years in order to ensure that this is just not allowable. It's not tolerated. It should not be tolerated. Many times, and I acknowledge the fact, many times, especially in youth, you do things that you think are comical. You do things that you think are innocent. You do things that you think, well, I can play a game. But the reality is, it's not a game. It's abuse. And it hurts an individual, whether they're an adult or a child. And right now, there's no recourse. There is one section, again, I need to point out at the end. This is not, candidly, it's not limited to technology. Most of the time, people would assume that what we've done is we've taken AI and we've taken an image and we've sexualized it. It's not limited to that, but it includes that. And I think one of the things you need to recognize on lines 45 through 51, we're not holding the provider, the electronic provider, no internet service provider, search engine provider, or cloud service provider, or affiliate subsidiary shall be liable under this code section if it's solely the fact that someone used their tool. And I'll do the analogy that says, right now, if someone uses a weapon to commit a crime, We do not go after the manufacturer of the weapon. We go after the individual who committed the crime. So this thing provides those in the technology space that we're not trying to ask them to address the issue. We're asking the individual to be responsible for their actions. So happy to take questions, and I'm happy to do whatever the will of the committee prefers.
Senator, thank you so much. You do have a Christmas tree, so we're going to go ahead and address them.
Usually create some discussion.
Representative Kendrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 5 questions. How many do I get?
You can do all 5. This is the right hearing to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a 3-page bill. You can read the whole bill in about. Okay, happy to.
All right, thank you. So the first question is on line 29.
Sure.
And we've had some discussion about that in
Yep.
this committee, and I
Yep.
serve on judiciary, non-civil.
Yep.
About being consistent in the code section.
Yep.
And if somebody from late council or from PAC, but the word knowingly,
Knowingly.
we usually put knowingly and intentionally.
Okay.
To try to make sure that we are being consistent in the code. Has anybody suggested that?
I would suggest that's a great legal question, and I would defer to the ledge counsel. And I have no issue with knowing and intentionally if that's the best way to address this concern. When I worked with ledge counsel on this legislation, we didn't discuss that finer point. And I would say this bill did go through judiciary in the Senate. So happy to accept the will of the committee.
Okay. Okay. My second question is on line 32. The way that I read it is one of the elements of violating the statute is that there is no authorization. But then on line 32, it says, or in the case of a minor without such minor's parent or a legal guardian. So the way that I read that is that if the legal guardian or the guardian gives consent for nudity, then it would be acceptable. But I'm sure that's not the
That's not the
intent.
case.
Okay.
And I think that's a very good point. The issue is it is never permissible
Correct.
for a minor to be abused.
Correct.
Never. And I think we've had this discussion, but I believe the attempt was to ensure that we hold the parent or guardian responsible for the minor's irresponsible actions. And I would say that in many cases, and I would hope in most cases, those are irresponsible actions. Those are not the intention. The underlying intention is not to damage someone's character or image. It's an unfortunate environment where people think this is somehow acceptable. But I'm happy, again, to defer to ledge counsel and the will of the committee. Is never acceptable.
Okay, I think I understand the reading of it. Thank you. My next question is line 37 through 39.
Yes.
The reason for the stay, I know that it's probably 2 different legal standards between the criminal and the civil
Right, so
enforcement. So what was the reasoning behind staying the civil?
We stay the civil when there is criminal action brought against that individual for that same action. And then once the criminal charge is adjudicated, the civil charge can then be pursued. So the objective here was to defer any civil action if criminal action was being pursued. And I would suggest that we're not seeing a great deal of criminal actions being pursued in this area. And our objective is not to criminalize the act. Our objective is to prevent the act or make sure the act stops. So we're trying to use this as a tool to provide good behavior and not allow bad behavior.
Okay. I guess I'm asking with respect to that section if there is a way for you to stop the activity under a civil enforcement action. Why would you stay it just because there's a criminal action? if that's the
I
intent of
think
that
the civil
section.
action would be deferred if criminal charges were brought. You got to recognize general, and I'm not an attorney, and you can help me. I believe civil actions can probably proceed faster, and you can get corrected behavior. But I would suggest that if the behavior rose to the level of criminal prosecution should take precedence.
Okay, that just proved my point that we probably, I just don't understand why we would stay it if there's a pending criminal action. But
Would you, again, as a non-attorney, I would anticipate that if I have a criminal charge, the district attorney would likely pursue the criminal charge before the civil charge. And I will acknowledge the fact that the $10,000 was increased from $1,000 because we don't think a DA or an ADA or a solicitor would pursue a small amount. So our objective again is not to fine people, and it's not to criminalize people. It's to correct behavior. That's objective. And unfortunately, right now in the Georgia Code, there's nothing that suggests that this behavior is wrong, and it's wrong. I should not be able to take your image and make you appear to be something you are not.
I'm with you. I'm just trying to strengthen,
I appreciate it.
the process here. My fourth question, I'm almost there. So on line 41, so probably about 10, maybe 15 years ago, we passed, we extended and I'm not sure what section of the code this is in, but we extended the time period that sexual abuse victims could bring a claim.
Charges.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see if it's consistent with that.
I don't know, but I would have to ask Ledge Counsel to verify that. I will make the bold assumption, which is always bad to make an assumption. I would anticipate that when Ledge Counsel crafted the 10-year language was likely consistent with prior legislation.
Yeah, I would
but
think.
We can verify that.
Okay. Yeah.
Happy to. And I'm not married to 10, but I am married to consistency. Okay.
Correct. And then the last question, just to clarify, under lines 45
Yep.
through 51, there's a line on line 48 that says not under the control of such provider. So I'm just trying to see, we had a whole discussion about social media platforms. So I'm trying to see if social media platforms would have, because a social media platform would obviously control the content, would they slip through the cracks and be liable under this?
I would, let me, full disclosure, this was a request coming from the telecommunications and technology industry to say we cannot be held liable for users' actions. So the fact that I gave you access to the internet and you abused it, I should not be held responsible or liable for that, and I concur. We have to address the root challenge, and the root challenge is the behavior of the individual that violates an image of someone else without their knowledge and consent. So the reason for 45 through 51 is at the request of the telecommunications industry to say we can't be responsible for what people do with our product. So this is not targeting the product itself. It's targeting the use of the product.
Right, and I get that. So I get the service providers. I was just wondering, because of line 48, because it says not under the control of such provider, since we're talking about social media platforms, if for some reason this gets on a social media platform, because they're not just providing a product, if they get sucked into the same protections.
Two words I think we need to make sure we understand. On line 46, it says solely on the basis of providing access or connection. So they can still be deemed responsible if they participated, but they're not the ones who are actually abusing the image. Mm-hmm. So, and on line 48, not under the control of such provider. So the provider doesn't control the abuser's use of the tool. The abuser uses whatever tool they use. By the way, I can take a photograph and I can cut your face out of one photograph and paste it onto another photograph that is nude or in a sexually explicit manner, and that's abuse. That's the same type of abuse. So it could be a physical image, it could be an electronic image. And one of the reasons why we didn't specify AI or technology use is because it's really broader than that. And what we're trying to do is say it's wrong for individuals to abuse other people's images. We're at a point, as I think the committee recognizes, I can take technology and I can represent virtually anything. And it's so good that I can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. And we have to say, if you do that, it's wrong, and these are the civil actions that are designed to defer that. Again, what we're trying to do is get injunctive relief. Stop doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Stop doing it. And if you don't stop doing it, then you should be penalized.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Senator, I was right there with you until my question was actually about 45 through 51.
Okay.
And it was actually my failure to be able to read the English language real well, but I understand what you, but you brought up
that
something.
45 to 51 is that legal language that I'm not as familiar with either.
Right, but you did bring up something in the answer to the lady there that, I mean, most of these things we've been dealing with have been related to the internet or the platform, social media platforms, and you brought in telecommunications. Isn't that, and I'm just asking you this, it doesn't have, I mean, but I'd like to know, if, especially since the telecommunications industry brought it to you, that's actually an issue, that's actually an issue that I think that the FCC has been dealing with over the years, and it really, and I think that kind of comes down to what their ruling is, or rule is currently, because that's an issue between whether a telecommunication company, their infrastructure, central offices, all the information or all the infrastructure that they provide is a content, has to do with content providing, or it's actually a telephone system.
Or is it a technology provider, a tool?
Technology provider, that's right. And I'm wondering, I was thinking that the latest ruling, which is probably a few years old now, a couple of years, is that they're telecommunication systems, and they're not providers of content.
Right.
Is that what you understand?
That's my understanding, and I would suggest that we're going to be able to stop the bad actors from abusing images if we address the individual who abuses the tool.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I'm not at all opposed to going after the tool maker when it's wrong. I'm not at all opposed to that. I would suggest that I can stop this behavior by just making sure they understand it's in code, it's a violation,
Yes.
Civil action can be brought against you, and you can be penalized.
Yes, sir. Just a question about that. I mean, I think what you're trying to do with the bill is really good.
Thank you.
Chairperson.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Whip Hart.
Mr. Whip, how are you?
Good, Senator
Good to see
Chairman.
you.
Senator, how are you, sir?
I'm well.
So, could you help explain about the part of why there would be no private cause of action for this matter?
We started there, and I appreciate the question. I think the reasoning to move to a civil action by a prosecutor, was to facilitate the process without the necessary need for adjudication. So, if I have a civil cause of action, if I understand it correctly, I would have to get an attorney, I'd have to hire an attorney, I'd have to sue the individual who maybe abused me, I'd have to go to court, they'd have to then do the same. At the end of the day, I cannot stop the behavior fast enough. I would suggest that if someone is abused, their image is abused, and they go to their solicitor or their local DA, we're not going to go to the Attorney General. I don't think the Attorney General is likely to be the person, but he is identified here so that they can do that. I think that if a constituent of a judicial circuit goes to a local DA with evidence that the image of an individual, minor or not, and they took it to that solicitor, and that solicitor can take immediate action, okay? Cease and desist, stop. And if you don't, here's the penalty. It's a civil penalty. So it's a lot faster, a lot cleaner, but the key is not to necessarily criminalize this, it's to stop bad behavior. Okay.
If I could push back a little,
Sure.
I think a private cause of action would create additional pathways to ensure more rapid response, especially if, for example, our DAs or the AG is involved in prosecuting criminal matters, certainly with respect to some of the existing backlog that also exists. The other question that, of course, arises is just the code section where this is entered, which is Title 51 as opposed to Title 16
It is Title 51.
or 45 with respect to prosecutors and DAs.
And I think the whip has a good point. Originally crafted, it was for a cause of action, and the committee or the whip may be familiar with a group across the nation called Civil Remedies for Unauthorized Disclosure of Intimate Images Act. And I've studied this, we've reviewed it, I'd be glad to provide committee information on it. It's Colorado, Arkansas, Delaware, there are several states out there that have pursued this course of action. And they have used a civil cause of action. I would suggest to you that, again, the civil cause of action is more expensive and more cumbersome. If I have a 13-year-old granddaughter, okay, let's get personal for a second. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter that goes to I shouldn't say, it goes to a school in the metro region, right? If someone took my 13-year-old granddaughter's image and abused it, I want immediate relief, okay? I don't want to have to go find an attorney to sue somebody to do something when I believe I can go to the solicitor or the assistant DA in that community and show them evidence, and they can immediately address that issue.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I want my granddaughter to be protected.
And I think I would want to provide you as many tools to get as
Then let's
quick relief as
begin with the
possible.
tool that's the most effective initial tool. And I'm happy to consider future options to strengthen it if this doesn't do the job, okay?
Thank you.
I think the best thing about our discussion is we all agree that what is happening is wrong and that we need to find a way to address it. I hope we can get to that point.
Two more questions or points, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Lines 50 to 51, it does create an exception in
Yes.
which
Yeah.
the provider, if it's
Provider.
responsible for the creation of that depiction, they could be held otherwise liable. Is that correct?
Let me verify that. 5051.
Or it says except to the extent?
Well, that's right, to the extent the provider is responsible, correct. So the provider could be held responsible if they are responsible for the creation of the content.
Last question, maybe more as a point of discussion, but what about instances of parody? And, I think
Very
of
good question.
things, South Park, for example,
Yeah,
and some of their episodes.
Very good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer, and I'm open to the committee's wisdom. I think a lot of it goes back to Representative's comment about knowingly and intentionally. What was the intent? Why did you do this? Was it designed to shame or bully or abuse? And if it was, stop. And perhaps we need to expand knowingly and intentionally, but that's up to the committee.
I appreciate that feedback, Senator, and I think perhaps adding additional language that would expand upon simply it being not authorized may help address instances of parody.
Happy to entertain your recommendations.
Thank you, sir.
But I realize my objective here, folks, is to get something on the books to protect individuals, especially children.
Wood Park, you good?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Chairman Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to my friend, listen, I think we need to do something here. And I think, is this a hearing only, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I would, as you talked about expanding this or doing more with it, I know we talk about nudity and sexual exploitation, but what if, what about, someone just took my photo and say may have put it on a gorilla or something like that?
Did they do it with your knowledge?
Without my knowledge.
Did they do it with your consent?
Negative.
Okay, then, I think they should not do it without your knowledge or consent.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's where I think we focus here on the nudity and the sexual piece
Yeah, I know,
of it.
but
maybe we could
again, a lot of times
expand
people
this
just
a little
doing
further.
it playing games, actually.
Right, a lot of folks play games that are not funny to some
No,
folks.
they're not. And again, I think part of the issue is I'm concerned about the emotional health, especially of our youth, and the fact that if their quote-unquote friends depict them in a nude or explicit manner, and perhaps even beyond that,
Right.
there has to be some guardrails. Now, again, I'm not trying to put people in jail. I'm not trying to criminalize things. I'm trying to stop bad activity.
Thank you, I think we agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I think you and I agree on protecting your 13-year-old niece. I think you and I would disagree on criminalizing. I want to criminalize. And so it's my understanding under current Georgia law, any kind of image of child pornography would be addressed criminally right away.
Correct. It should be addressed right away. I totally agree.
So my concern with this bill is that it would add another layer that may unintentionally protect the person distributing child pornography. So what you're saying is that this will provide injunctive release, forcing the provider to remove the picture, right? When really what should happen is it does go to either a local police department or solicitor, DA, whoever, that immediately presses criminal charges. There should be no question as to whether we do civil action or criminal action. If it's child pornography, I don't care if it's a 13-year-old face on a 50-year-old body, it's still child pornography.
Totally agree.
Immediate criminal action, right? This brings question whether it's civil or criminal.
That leads to the fact that the DA has to bring that criminal charge, and that's why any civil action stayed during the criminal action arising out of that conduct. So we'd allow the criminal action to take precedence. The civil action would be receded until certain criminal action has been adjudicated.
Okay, the way I read it is the DA would decide between the two.
Well, I think that I agree with you there, but the DA is, I would hope that the DA would look at the criminal charge as a more severe approach toward enforcement, and that the civil action would be the lesser of that. Let me suggest that it's more difficult to get a criminal prosecution verdict than it would be to get a civil injunctive relief action. So that I can take a bad actor and I can charge them criminally, and I can't, it could take years to get relief in a criminal environment. I can take a civil action. Again, now we're not talking about the pornographer. We're not talking about the professional abuser. We're talking about mostly individuals who, in some cases in their mind, innocently portray you or me or my granddaughter incorrectly. I'm trying to make sure they understand that's wrong.
I understand that, but it's criminal for any kind of distribution, not the professional videographer creep that's videotaping something. Any kind of distribution is illegal as far as my understanding goes.
It is.
So I would want the DA to immediately go to criminal charges, which should take down the content immediately.
Agree. And I don't think we're changing that at all. As a matter of fact, what I hope we're doing is strengthening it so that we can expand the use. Look on lines, again, I read it through a minute ago, 25 through 27. Use or uses means and includes personal use. Personal use. So, 13-year-old boy takes an image of his 13-year-old girlfriend and sexualizes it. Is that criminal?
Criminal. It would be
Again,
criminal, period.
13-year-old
13-year-old boy
13-year-old.
putting up
My point is,
nude images of a 13-year-old girl,
for
criminal.
For personal use, not distributed, not published.
On social media, it would
I
be,
didn't say that.
okay,
I said, not published, not distributed.
still criminal.
I got it, but again, why would you not choose to add a protection to that individual so that we can immediately stop the bad behavior? So going back to lines 25, includes personal use, the use that involves publication, performance, distribution, transmission, or otherwise making available to the public, irrespective of whether it is for commercial purposes. So you don't have to try to sell it. It's wrong. And I would hope that, again, our objective here is to protect Georgians.
I agree with that. One more question.
Can you make it?
I'll make it quick. Also in our code is revenge porn. We've made it illegal for revenge porn, which is the same concept.
Which is concept, right?
Right?
Agreed.
And so, again, I'm afraid that this is adding a layer that may delay addressing revenge porn immediately on the criminal end.
I hear your concerns. I don't necessarily share them as concerns. I see this as some well-needed legislation to expand protection. I think there are any number of high-profile criminal cases where the defendant was able to be held not guilty of a criminal charge and subsequently be held liable for a civil charge. It's the same concept here. We're providing a civil relief if the criminal challenge is either inappropriate or unattainable.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Thomas, you're the cleanup hitter.
All right, thank you. I actually want to, it's funny that you picked up on that. That's exactly one of the questions I have, specifically OCGA 161190 through 92, and I know you don't have the whole code in front of you, but that's the revenge porn section of the code. I'm interested to know what made you decide to, instead of just maybe working within the provisions of the existing code and bolstering that a little bit, but instead what made you feel like you needed to take a completely different kind of subsection? Because I'm a little concerned that one is going to preempt the other as well. I independently came up with that one, so.
Well, I would say, as most legislation, it comes from an experience. It comes from a constituent. It comes from a discussion. It comes from something that points you toward saying, address this problem. So, this concept germinated from a discussion back a year or so ago in a conference where we were talking about name, image, and likeness, NIL. So if I am quarterback at the University of Georgia and I enjoy certain notoriety and certain ability to market my name and image and likeness, and I protect that by law, I extended that to say it should be equally applicable to an individual whose image is abused. If I protect a star athlete's marketability and value, market value with a name, image, and likeness contract, why would I not provide the same protection, not commercially viable, but the same protection for the name, image, and likeness of a child? That's where it came from. Now, we're not dealing with names here. We're dealing with images and likenesses when they're abused. That's where it came from.
Well, I understand where it came from. I was just trying to really more understand of where y'all's mind was going this route instead of just working
When
within
I
the existing provisions of
Again,
the
to
code.
follow up,
Yeah.
when I began exploring options for addressing this, and I requested Ledge Council's assistance, I basically described what I was trying to accomplish. And when I met with Ledge Council and discussed this was their recommendation. Now, folks, I'll take any path that works. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to take any path that works. As we all know, we're getting toward the end of a session, and there's very little time left. And in my mind, this is the most important thing I can do this year, okay?
Yeah, well, I'm good.
And I just need something to protect the image of individuals, just to say it's wrong and stop. It's a cease and desist.
You and I are buddies. I've helped you with plenty of bills come through over the House over the years. I have a House bill, HB 171, that I've been trying to get through the Senate that does exactly the same three, and it gets stopped every year. There's some version of it for 3 years that does exactly the same thing.
Does
And-
this?
Yeah, it's been sitting in the Senate, and it sits over there, and then it dies. And then
Bring it to me.
I'll be more than happy to. It's sitting in rules right now. But I cannot agree more that this is one of the single most important issues that we have to address as a General Assembly, and it would be a travesty to walk out of session not having some kind of protections
Not
in
have
place
something.
for our kids. And that particular bill, like I said, has been vetted through Senate Judiciary, House Judiciary multiple times.
Let me suggest, I have no sense of ownership for this concept.
Okay.
And I'm happy to support any movement in the direction of protecting individuals from abusive image use.
Well, my good friend, I am in alignment with you, so maybe we could talk offline.
Maybe we can figure that out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator Burns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, the Christmas tree is now dark.
Good. I'm
So
delighted.
congratulations. What I'd like to be able to do is first I want to obviously say thank you. What has traditionally been the modus operandi of the committee, you heard a lot of thoughtful questions and comments. Please don't be surprised if the representatives that reached out to you in this comment section reached out to you directly to possibly discuss with you what could be potential changes. I think we have, my notes literally look like law school in terms of all the margin notes. So we got a lot to look at here, and I appreciate your time, and thank you so much, Senator.
I appreciate the committee's consideration. I recognize it's a challenging project.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Pardon 1 second, Senator. Was this for the senator? Oh, it's not for the senator. Okay, I apologize, Senator. Okay.
You want mine? 171.
Oh, my apologies, Senator. Before you leave, you did have an individual who's going to speak, Mr. D'Angelo. My apologies for not calling you up.
I'll be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Joseph D'Angelo, Church Ambassador Network Director for Frontline. We are in favor of this bill or any bill that accomplishes the same outcome. We want to make sure that we're protecting children. We've got a bunch of statistics. We've heard a lot about this bill already, so I won't get into them, but we're in strong support of Senator Burns' bill. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator. All right, our third, I guess we had one resolution. So our second bill of the day, Leader Anna Vitardi. If you can, just bill number and I guess the SB number, please.
Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know what day it is. This is SB 540. I don't have the LC number because I don't have the bill with me. But I'll kind of walk through kind of the purpose of this bill, why we're bringing it forward, and then obviously take some Q&A. Thanks, Ben. So AI is rapidly transforming our world. It's been helping doctors detect diseases, increase productivity in our workforce, and has given small business powerful tools that only once large corporations could afford. We've seen AI become one of the more powerful technologies when we talk about intelligence, we talk about national security, and, you know, this AR arms race that I think we've all seen globally talked about, whether it's in the news or, you know, across the country. Recently, the federal government has made it clear that, you know, their priority in recent executive actions has been focused on that global AI race to ensure economic strength and national security. At the same time, the executive orders that we've seen recently over the last few months also recognizes that states have an important role to play in terms of putting in place safe guardrails, particularly when it comes to protecting children online. It allows innovation to continue, this bill does, but it ensures that we are addressing the real risks that emerging AI technologies pose to our children. Across the country, we're seeing rapid use of conversational AI systems designed to simulate human interaction. For many adults, these tools can be useful and productive, but for children and teenagers, they present a real and growing risk. Recent studies show that nearly 2/3 of teenagers are already using AI chatbots, and more than half report turning these into systems for emotional support. These systems are not neutral. They are machines specifically designed to maximize overall engagement. They are programmed to validate and reinforce user behavior in order to keep people interacting with them longer. For developing minds, especially young children, that dynamic has become and is dangerous. We've seen many troubling examples. We've seen AI chatbots have simulated romantic relationships with minors. In some cases, they have encouraged harmful behavior or failed to respond appropriately when users express those thoughts of self-harm or suicide, and that's not acceptable. This Senate bill establishes common sense guardrails to ensure that these technologies develop in a way that protects our children. The bill prohibits sexually explicit interactions between AI systems and minors. It bans AI from simulating romantic relationships with children and requires operators to maintain procedures that direct users expressing suicidal thoughts to proper crisis resources. Second, it requires conversational AI programs to clearly disclose when an AI user is interacting with artificial intelligence rather than being a human being. The bill also requires AI platforms to provide parental controls and tools so that parents and not algorithms have the final say over how their children interact with these systems. These are pretty simple and most reasonable protections, we believe. They do not stop innovation. They do not hinder responsible companies that are building next-gen technology in the space. Instead, they ensure that AI becomes more integrated into our daily lives, but also our children are not exposed to preventable harm. Georgia should absolutely remain a leader in innovation. AI will help shape our economy, strengthen our national security, and create opportunities for next gen. But leadership in technology also means being responsible. This bill supports innovation while protecting Georgia's families and ensuring our children are not exploited in a world that is changing faster than any of us could have ever imagined, and we see that day to day and week to week. Members, there was a couple of changes in terms of the involvement of this bill from when it passed Senate committee and also when we took it up on the floor of the Senate. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. One part of the bill in particular, around, I believe it's lines 30, 31-ish, somewhere in that part of the bill, we upgraded that language to ensure that that language could be interpreted, that if we didn't strike that language, it can be interpreted as exempting public websites hosting a widely accessible chatbot that's still accessible to children. And with that change, we wanted to make sure that we were ensuring clarity that the reasonable protections contained within this bill will apply to AI chatbots that are easily accessed by children. The other part of this bill, and I think it was in one of these House committees we took up a couple of years ago when I brought forward Senate Bill 351, we did put an age verification requirement. In terms of age verification, over the last couple of years, the evolution of those national discussions, it is still in 351, the law that we passed here in Georgia. It was subject to constitutional challenges that went to the Supreme Court. And in Free Speech Coalition versus Paxson, directly addressed at Texas, the Georgia law was referenced and it was upheld as constitutional. The age verification model in this amendment is the best way to protect children and it not be subject to constitutional attack under the First Amendment. And with that, ask for favorable consideration and any questions.
Mr. Leader, thank you. Representative Kendrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is a technical one. So I'm assuming all the capitalized AI is for artificial intelligence. I don't see it referring back to what that definition is, but that's a technical thing. Starting on line 16, you refer to AI, but it's not referenced anywhere else, so you would have to just know that it says AI. I mean, that it stands for artificial intelligence.
That's a fair statement.
The second thing is I'm trying to understand what the heart of the bill is. So from lines 47 to 51, it talks about that the operator has to disclose on the minor account that it's not talking to a natural person. But then on lines 66 to 68, it almost contradicts that part because it makes it seem like the operator only has to disclose that it's not a natural person if a reasonable person would believe that it's not talking to a natural person. So which standard are you using? Do you want it to automatically disclose that it's not talking to a natural person, or only if that person would believe that they're not talking to a natural person? Which one is it?
I mean, in a perfect world, probably both. But I think when a minor is entering in, whatever their conversation is, and starts triggering, different types of questions, or I don't know what word I want to use, maybe prompts in terms of seeking out information or responses, or kind of in that back and forth conversation with the chatbot. Before we kind of get to that place, that the age verification would protect that child, just like we did with the social media bill back in 351.
So a clarifying question. So do you want the disclosure to automatically happen on a minor account as they're going through the chat box, or you only want it to be displayed once it starts talking like a natural person and a reasonable person could believe that it is a chat box? Like, I'm trying to reconcile what the language says versus what you're trying to specifically do.
I mean, ideally with the account, but there should be some sort of triggers that happen during the conversation. I mean, we can talk about that further.
Okay, I'll ask offline. The other thing is on, I'm sorry. How many questions I got?
No, this is the right meeting. Ask all the questions you have, get all the issues out, please.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right, line 53. This talks about not providing a minor account with points or similar awards, and I get, with the intent to encourage increased engagement. What's the purpose of having the words unpredictable intervals?
Which line are you referring to one more time?
53. Like, if you took that out, would it still accomplish what you're trying to do, or was that specifically put in there for a specific reason?
Yeah, I think that's for a specific reason.
And the reason is?
I think just in terms of those prompts and around the conversation of what the minor is in terms of engagement, so it's not further increasing any sort of inappropriate activity.
Okay. And then my last question is on page 85 and 86. The carve-out that you have about knowingly and intentionally making a representation about it providing professional mental or behavioral health care, as opposed to like it, acting in another profession? Is there a reason for the carve out only for professional mental and behavioral health care, as opposed to saying that the AI service can't, pretend to be any professional service provider?
Yeah, I think our focus right now is in terms of protecting kids from an emotional standpoint, from a mental health perspective.
Okay.
Representative, does that exhaust your questions?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Representative Tran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. So I'm going to try to think a little bit out of the box here so that we're not looping something in or leaving out something that needs to be left out. So let's go back to like the early days of the Tamagotchis, where kids had these little Tamagotchi devices and they had to feed them, wake them, take them for walks or whatever to keep this little digital animal alive. Fast forward to today, we're starting to see dolls. Some of them are pets, they're little dogs, they're little dolls that are given to kids as toys, but AI is implemented in them. And so when talking about conversational AI, it could be a mimic of how a dog would respond, a puppy would respond like a real puppy. But it gives me concern because of emotional dependence, which you list in your bill. And so how does this bill address the emerging technology in that end, where a toy could also be an emotional support product?
Yeah, so Representative, I think it's a fair question. I mean, I think what we're trying to attempt, because there are no laws on Georgia's books right now kind of in this space, and I think we're sort of going with this is, I think you and I know this technology is going to just continue to accelerate. So you and I may be back here next year with, where maybe the AI providers or the AI tools are currently. And, I think we are living in a world where, we're not looking to, create kind of a patchwork across the country. I think we know that there's some very key pieces and sensitivity around children right now in all sorts of, technology spaces, and especially in this space. But I think as this technology evolves and I think the technology gets better, hopefully those things like we've seen with the social media companies, I don't want to call it the norm, but those kind of protections, will become more part of where we're at. But I think because we're seeing just this spike with kids relying on these tools for the emotional supports, I think until the technology is, in 10 years, you and I may not even have to talk about this because hopefully all of our kids and grandkids are safe by that point. So this is the first step, and I think we're in a posture, we believe, that we do something versus nothing in order to protect Georgia's most vulnerable kids. But I think it's a good question.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Parsons?
Thank you, Chairman. Senator, I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions, if I may. On line 40, on 41, first of all, it appears here that you're targeting the apps or the providers of the apps, the app owners, those platforms, and not the app store. Is that right? You're excluding the. I'm sure that's something that Google has probably talked to you or somebody about because that's one of their big things.
This bill has nothing to do with app stores. I know to your question, we took that up in 351. We've had lobbyists chasing us around this building wanting to talk about app stores. Between all the legal battles and federal battles over app stores right now, this bill is not intended to solve that problem.
Well, why, if I may, why
No,
not?
go ahead.
They're actually the ones who are providing those.
Correct.
You go to Google or any, and their app store, and all those apps are actually available. The ones that are
Right.
causing the problem that you're talking about are actually available there.
Right. This language here in terms of age verification, minor accounts, and everything else, it's been constitutionally upheld under, as I stated before, the Texas law. It's the law that we put in place for 351. So all we did was take that language.
What has been
and put it in
upheld? I'm
here.
sorry, I missed that.
What's that?
What has been upheld?
In terms of, age verification.
Well, that's not what I'm asking about, though. But you believe that the Googles and those platforms, they should be exempted from any kind of
I'm not here to have that policy. That's a totally separate
Well,
debate.
it's
then.
not separate. I mean, all due respect, it's not separate at all.
That's fine.
Okay, next question. And I think you said you dealt with one of these bills we had a couple of years ago, so you would know this. On 40, and this is just a question, but the minor account, it's not defined in this bill. Is there some place where a minor account is defined? It says, it says means an account, excuse me, means an account which has a minor account holder. But what is a minor? And
I will get you that code section. We wrote that into Senate Bill 351 when it was written into law, and all this does is tie in those existing code sections.
Well, as I recall, it had to be very specific about whether it was 16, 15, 16, 17, or 18.
Correct.
So which is it?
I'll get you the code section.
Okay.
I didn't memorize the code section from 2 years ago.
Okay. And then just one more question right now, if I may.
Go for it.
And that is on page 3. Let's see here. In particular, I guess I'd ask about 63, line 63B, statements that simulate emotional dependence. Isn't that pretty broad? I mean, what exactly would that? I mean, that would be pretty hard to define or to prosecute, I would think. Statements that simulate emotional dependence.
I mean, I don't know that that's too broad. I mean, if you're a minor and you're underage, whether you're on AI or talking to a friend or you're looking for emotional dependence, I mean, that could mean a whole lot of things. I think if you're trying to write this in a more narrow sense, if a child is crying out for help or a predator is tracking them down or making comments or statements or expressing certain feelings, that could be a flag for suicidal thoughts or something else. I think our intent, again, is to make sure that there's support for that child, and that's what line 63 is getting to. Again, this type of bill around AI is the first attempt to put something in law to protect kids, but I would rather have a little bit broader definition of 63 than trying to make this so technical that we're going to miss opportunities to protect kids, especially as the technology evolves, as Representative Tran kind of
Right.
was talking about.
I understand that. I'm just thinking in terms of court challenges and things like that. I would think that would be something they would attack almost immediately.
Sir. If you have suggested language and working with the chairman, I mean, we can discuss what that might be.
Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Thank you, Chairman Parsons. Thank you, Chairman Parsons, and I've wrote a couple notes, and I will definitely get with you per the leader's comments. Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a few points that I think a few of my colleagues have touched upon as well. You mentioned in and around lines 27 to 34 that there were some floor amendments on the Senate when this passed. These exclusions seem fairly broad. I mean, are we, and at the same time, it seems, both under-inclusive and over-inclusive. Do we have a clear sense of who is being captured and who we're missing by how these exclusions are written?
In terms of, what do you mean?
So lines 29, 30, 31, 32, lines 29 to 34, right? We have all these additional exclusions that this would not apply to. If we're looking at lines 32 to 33, for example, my understanding would be that's like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant. That could certainly, I could envision, create emotional dependence for a minor in certain circumstances. Again, do we have a clearer understanding as to who is included and who we're missing with some of these exclusions?
Yeah, I don't know that we're missing anyone. I think we've done the best that we can do. I think in terms of making sure we're capturing, in terms of the amendment that we put on the floor to make sure it's reasonable protection for children and their specific guardrails in terms of the technology and within the provider community.
Okay. Moving on to kind of my second point, and this kind of mirrors some of the concerns raised by Chairman Parsons, but from lines 55 to 65. I think I'm identifying the word reasonable at least 3 or 4 times. But really, it's lines on line 55, 56. The operator shall institute reasonable measures to prevent, the conversational AI service from X, Y, and Z. Are there other states that have more defined parameters? Just because I could envision a big tech company saying, hey, our existing parameters are reasonable. There's no further action that we need to take that continues to permit, these harmful behaviors from continuing.
Yeah, I mean, Representative Park, this would probably be one of the first bills of this kind in the country, just like Senate Bill 351 was when we brought it forward. I think we were the second state to pass it, and this one we're probably in the top 3 or top 4 in terms of this type of protections for children.
I think it's a very important intent that you have for this bill. I just want to ensure that there are teeth to ensure that we're able to enforce it, and certainly that a prosecutor could enforce it as opposed to
Yeah,
debating.
and if you have language you want me to review and look at with the chairman, I'll be happy to take a peek at that and look
Okay.
at it and walk it through with you.
Likewise, I'd raise the same concern with respect to what Representative Tran and Chairman Parsons mentioned with respect to the definition of emotional dependence, romantic innuendo. I think, adult-minor romantic relationships certainly should be something prohibited, but, I think if we're wanting to be inclusive, to expand that a little bit broader, so we're talking maybe adult, minor, if the concern is dependence on a AI tool that could otherwise cause harm. But certainly happy to provide some feedback after I do some research myself. Just, again, reasonable. What's reasonable to myself certainly may not be reasonable to yourself, Senator.
That's probably true. Thank you, Representative.
Last thing, if I may. So lines
Yep.
91 and 92, and this was a similar concern I raised with Chairman Burns' bill as well. My understanding of this language is that, with respect to private cause of action, my understanding is that this language doesn't preclude or prohibit a private cause of action, but at the same time doesn't create one. Again, I think given the importance of this issue and how quickly this technology is moving, in my mind, it's always, if we're trying to ensure protection of especially minors, having a concurrent jurisdiction or a concurrent manner in which these issues could be prosecuted, I think would better serve the stated purpose of the bill. Would you be open to including a private cause of action here?
No, I mean, I'm not. I'm very comfortable with the language we have currently.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Whip Park. Chairman Crow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to comment on the conversation they were just having about reasonable. And there are other places in the law that we already use reasonable. For example, reasonable articulable suspicion is already used in our law. And so I think there's a legal standard for what reasonable is. And so I think that I'm comfortable with the language that's in here.
Thank you, Chairman Crow. And batting cleanup again, Chairman Thomas.
Thank you. By the way, it's good to see you, Mr. Lear.
You too,
Hey,
sir.
Ben. I usually, when I want to know what's going on in the Senate, first thing I do is I look at whatever you do to floor amendments. I usually find that's the funnest place to kind of see what was going on. One of the floor amendments.
I think we have an undefeated record on floor amendments for the most part in the Senate right now.
Well, one of the floor amendments specifically affected, it was Amendment 2. It changed line 88 from 1,000 to 10,000 per violation. But the problem is it's 10,000 in aggregate. So if you say you have 2,600 users and say it's a startup AI company, this is just one of, by the way, it's good to see you too, Senator Harrell. I was trying to work with you, trying to get this bill in last year in one of my bills. So, I heard that. But I'm concerned that if this is a startup company and maybe they're trying to do everything that they're supposed to do, sometimes all the legal alignments can be concerning, but they do everything they're trying to do. By creating a $10,000 per violation fine per user, I mean, that can rack up to millions of dollars really quick. And for maybe that's just maybe an unintentional consequence from the amendment bill that can you kind of maybe, I'm sorry, this is a really roundabout way to get to a question. Could you kind of come about what the idea was between 1,000 and 10,000 and that change.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, this was an amendment that was introduced by Senator Hatchett, and I think it was basically just upping the penalty.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, I want people to be in compliance, and I
Right.
want them to. I would definitely want to show that this is something that we need to take serious. But I don't want to shut future entrepreneurs down because they maybe made a mistake either. I'm just a little concerned about that. And
If you have suggestions, we can talk.
that sounds
Yep.
good. I will. Thank you, Mr. Leader. Second comment is one of the things that this committee, most of the AI bills have been coming to this committee for a reason. One of the things is lines 35.
I guess that. No,
Yeah. Lines 35 through 39. We have kind of a standard definition we're trying to keep tight across all the codes. I'd hope you'd be amenable if we could just kind of use our standard definition that the Senate actually agreed to that in your Senate study committee as well. So it's just kind of a basic cleanup so we don't have 25 different definitions of generative artificial intelligence. One other one, I'd like to phone a friend, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I was also concerned about the institute reasonable measures, and the only reason why is a lot of times there's some type of reference to a body that decides what reasonable measures are, and for example, I'm with my background, like I can always go to American Society of Mechanical Engineers code, and that's the reasonable measures that have laid out by industry professionals. And I'm just curious, is Mason Rainey in here by any chance? Is he? Hey Mason, does your industry? May I, Mr. Chairman? Just ask. I'm just curious.
Yeah, go ahead. But I hate to ask, Mr. Leader, would you share the mic for a moment just because of the streaming, if you don't mind?
No, you can.
I don't have a second mic to give you,
No,
is
I'd
my
say,
point,
yeah,
Mr.
no,
Rainey.
come on up here.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing with the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Mason Rainey with the Technology Association of Georgia. In regards to some of the reasonable measures to prevent these pieces, I can put a more comprehensive list together for everyone, but there's tools like age estimation technology, as well as content filtering for inappropriate material, and I do believe that there are some NIST standards out there as well, but I'll be happy to get those for the group.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I don't want someone to subjectively say what's reasonable or what's not. And I feel like if there's a good defense there, if the industry can say that these are the things that we typically consider standard and reasonable. Again, it's not the fox watching the hen house situation, but I do think it might help alleviate some of those concerns.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me to phone a friend, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. Are we excusing your friend?
Mr. Friend, you are excused.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leader, you're back on the con.
That's all, Mr.
That's
Chairman.
it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman Thomas. Mr. Leader, thank you so much. We appreciate this. Our goal is to get with you and obviously your staff and work through just a couple of changes. I will say one of the things that I'm really looking at is not just whether or not, and I'll put the colloquialism of big tech, in there, but not just is big tech being carried to some type of, I'll say, standard, but also the bad actor. Because more and more we're seeing it doesn't matter if it's big tech or, to Chairman Thomas's point, it's a startup, but the ability to effectively second the conversational AI or basically utilize it, and in many instances it's a subscription model of basically being used. Right. The bad actor then effectively does what is being listed in several areas of your bill, sir, and the conversation that we'll have probably is, do we include that here, or do we include that into, I'll say, a separate set of legislation? But ultimately, I do think there is a platform conversation to be had, and then there's the bad actor conversation to be had, and I'm not quite sure they're mutually exclusive, but obviously we can have that conversation. But
no,
thank
I
you so much.
We need it's a good conversation to have. I mean, it makes you kind of wonder whether in the House and Senate we need to probably have an AI committee. No offense to the technology committee, but I mean, this could turn into its own world as this evolves. And I know, like Representative Tran kind of highlighted, I mean, we're going to be talking about this for decades to come.
So to that point, Mr. Leader, I truly agree with you. And whether it's Chairman Parsons' committee or whichever, if you want to call it an infrastructure committee, but in my mind, to your exact point, I think if you were putting together a city today or a county today, for the last 100 years, it's been, do we have wastewater? Do we have water? Do we have fire? Do we have electricity? Do we have gas, et cetera? To not have as a horizontal in that utility conversation or infrastructure conversation, I'll just put the general bespoke comment of AI, I think is folly. So to your point, I think at this point it's tethered completely into life. So the question becomes is it something separate or does it get baked into here, EUT, et cetera?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, not to be funny, but I mean, even this week and other work that I'm dealing with right now with Representative Gullett and others, I mean, these tools have found waste deficits that, human politicians and finance directors and city managers have not been able to find with some of our local cities, as we've debated in the last 48 hours dissolving Georgia cities. So, I mean, I think as we kind of go through this, whether it's protecting kids or these other infrastructure pieces in the technology realm, but how does it play into infrastructure and day-to-day society? I mean, I think those are real life debates and policy conversations I think we need to have to make sure Georgia is the standard bearer, but also protected. But we're also trying to do everything we can to be prosperous and win as a state and lead the nation.
I like the lead the nation part.
I always want to lead the nation.
Absolutely, Mr. Leader. Mr. Leader, I know you have a tight schedule, but we do have 3 people that want to speak on your bill. Obviously, feel free to stay if you'd like, but if not, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. There's no other questions from the committee. Thank you so much, and we're going to go ahead and
questions.
Nope, absolutely, and we're going to start with public comment. Mr. D'Angelo, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, Joseph D'Angelo, Director of the Church Ambassador Network for Frontline Policy Council. We are in support of the leader's bill, Senate Bill 540. As the leader mentioned, 3 in 4 American teenagers now use AI chatbots nationally. A nationally representative JAMA study found that 1 in 8 adolescents use generative AI for mental health advice. This happened during a declared youth mental health crisis. And these platforms have no obligation under current Georgia law to tell a child the truth, to protect them from sexual content, or refer them to help when they say they want to die. Common Sense Media and Stanford Medicine concluded that AI chatbots are, quote, fundamentally unsafe for teen mental health support. And the consequences are not just hypothetical. In February of 24, Sewell Setzer III, a 14-year-old boy from my home state of Florida, died by suicide, and court filings alleged that a character.ai chatbot spent months drawing him into sexual role play, presenting itself as his romantic partner, and telling him that it loved him. When he expressed suicidal thoughts, the chatbot responded, "Please do, my sweet king." His mother testified before Congress that the platform never said, "I'm not human, I'm AI." So Google and Character.ai settled the resulting wrongful death lawsuits this past January. SB 540 doesn't ban AI. It requires that operators tell minors that they're talking to a machine, to block sexual content for minor accounts, prohibit addictive reward features designed to maximize engagement, give parents tools to manage their children's accounts, and have a plan when a user says they want to harm themselves. And these are minimum standards of basic responsibility. As the leader said, we would be a leader in the nation. Only New York and California have acted, and the FTC has launched a probe in this case. So this is a national consensus in formation. Georgia should be a leader in the nation, and it should not lag. We're a Christian organization, and we believe in the scriptures. Romans 13 calls governing authorities God's servants for the good of the people. And when a platform is engineered to simulate love with a child and keep them endlessly engaged at the cost of their mental health and their life, this body has not just the authority, but the obligation to act. And we urge you today to pass SB 540. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Ms. Jana, I can't quite read your last name, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself and which organization that you're with, please.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee for allowing me the time to speak to this. I'm Jana Hoffacker. I'm the executive director of the Georgia Catholic Conference. I represent the Catholic Bishops of Georgia, and I am here today to support SB 540 on their behalf. The Catholic Church espouses a cautious approach to AI given its uncertain relationship to and its impact on human beings and our environment. All human beings are ends to be served by technology, not means to be exploited for the sake of more narrow interests. So we are particularly concerned about the harm that AI, and in particular the conversational AI that we're talking about in this case, can cause to children and other vulnerable people when unregulated. So we support this bill in its effort to mitigate those harms that have already impacted children and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. It's my honor to represent OpenAI. Prior to the session starting, I had sent many of you OpenAI's youth safety model legislation, both in the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats. When we saw this bill coming, I reached out to the leader's chief of staff. I met with the leader. I gave him several sheets of paper at that time. He was very polite, very cordial, as he always is. But he said, you know, we're ready to vote on it in the Senate. I suggest you talk to folks in the House. And that's when I met with you, Mr. Chairman, at that time. The documentation that I'm looking at now is exactly the same as I showed Mr. Gerard before. Our first issue, candidly, is we don't think the age estimation language here is strong enough. So let me go back 1 second. We support the legislation. We support the bill. We just don't think it's strong enough. We think Georgians deserve stronger legislation. So, for instance, when you talk about reasonable age verification methods on line 70 to 71, and then you say which may include, it means 1, 2, and 3 really doesn't mean much because it's a may. And I don't know what reasonable, frankly, means. So I would point to language that OpenAI has given probably at least 20 legislators that literally talks about implementing age estimation technology to distinguish accounts that are held by minors from accounts held by adults. And there's, 3 paragraphs thereafter that literally cover that information to protect minors. We have additionally talked about the fact that such legislation should require annual youth safety risk assessments, once again, to protect minors. We've talked about, frankly, stronger parental controls and risk-based notification. And we've talked about independent youth safety audits. So in summary, we support the bill. We just think that we need a stronger bill, and we would be happy to work with whoever to create a stronger bill. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. I appreciate that, and I'm the point of contact for that, and I'll be working directly with Mr. Gerard and obviously the leader, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, Mr. Leader, do you have any closing comments after that, or, okay? At this time, not seeing anything, we don't have a Christmas tree, we're good to go, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.